I can't do it. Okay. We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. It. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Thing sucks.
Yes, it does. Welcome in. It's Tuesday, July 22nd. Another edition of the Daily Puck Drop via Twitter and YouTube. We come live also on the Puck Sports mobile app until 11:30. And once the show wraps up, we post everything up on YouTube and all your favorite podcast platforms. We always appreciate you riding a shotgun here for the next 90 minutes. We've got a jam-packed show for you. We'll talk about the latest with Eugenio Suarez. A new article coming out early this morning from Adam Judah of the Seattle Times. We'll get into that. It's a perfect lead-in to Jim Duquette coming up in 10 minutes. Duquette will join us coming up from MLB Network Radio. John Canzano is back. He's in Las Vegas. Big Ten Media Days are taking place right now over the next several days. Washington, Jed Fish, they go tomorrow, so we'll get his thoughts on what he has seen so far. He just had a one-on-one sit-down with the commissioner of the Big Ten and the Puck's Posse giveaway. I have really big negligent on that. And that's my fault, and I apologize. And I owe you guys an apology. So we're going to give away another $100 gift card to our Puck's Posse giveaway for all those who have signed up here over the last several months, and that is my fault for not doing that the last several months, and that's E1 on me. So we'll get to that. Daily Puck Drop broadcasting, of course, from the Limbach Lumber Studios. Contractors, they got free deliveries, everything from whole house packages to homeowner DIY projects. Largest stock moldings in the Northwest. Old school service because they've been doing it since 1930. Give Limbach Lumber a call, 782-3487. 206-782-3487. Visit them online at limbachlumber.com. Follow me on all the social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, just Puck Sports, Instagram, and also on TikTok at Puck_sports. And you can find us on Facebook there as well. And as I mentioned before, we'll do our Puck's Posse giveaway, but go to pucksports.com. You can sign up to become a Puck's Posse member. You get access to all the free shows that we do, plus bonus shows as well. This week's Sports Pit, which, by the way, we announced yesterday. We're going to start recording those on Tuesday. So it will come out later tonight. Just kind of it fits our schedules a little bit better. And then Wednesdays, MLB insider Ryan Divish will get his thoughts. It'll be a week from the trade deadline when we talk to Divish, and like 8 days, I guess. And then Thursdays, Mitch the Kid, Mitch Unfiltered, joins us on Thursdays, and the Graz with Gas Take 5 podcast, which you can find on all your favorite podcast platforms. All right, Mariners game last night. I don't know what do you want to? They got it shoved by Brandon Woodruff. They got just absolutely shoved. And George, it was a great game. I was flying by. I'm sitting down on the back deck, and I'm like, as you're watching a baseball game, you're kind of watching, and then I'm kind of scrolling through my phone. Then I'm watching. I'm like, God darn it, man. It's already in the 5th inning. Like, you're just cruising. And then 6th inning happens, and Jesus, man. Poor George Kirby just could not get out of that damn inning. He was cruising, ends up giving up the 4 runs. I mean, we can go through all through it, but I mean, it went from he has a no-hitter to he can't get anyone out, and this is not good at all. And that's the second time it happened to him. It happened to him in Detroit, happened in the last game against Houston. So God, you go from a game where you're like, oh, this is going to be really good, to like, oh Jesus, what else is on? This is miserable and depressing. It was cool to see the Brandon Garcia make his debut. Just tough luck for Brandon Garcia last night. I mean, gives up the double to Contreras. He gets that infield single by Christian Yelich. He fields it and then just makes a bad throw over to first base, which leads to an error. Yelich, smart base running, steals third on him. Say this about the Brewers, who have won. Is it 11 straight? I think it is now. And they got Jacob Mizorowski on the mound tonight, which is going to be an awesome matchup. Mizorowski against Logan Gilbert. But God, they play fun, don't they? They just kind of play old school baseball. They're a fun team to watch. Aggressive on the bases, smart base running, great approach at the plate. They are just a fun team to watch play the game of baseball. I enjoy watching them play. They just play hard. It's very old school. It is a throwback to how baseball used to be played. It's what, really what the Mariners should play like. But they don't rely exclusively there on the home run. Juicy game tonight. Mizorowski against Logan Gilbert. Mizorowski has started only 5 games this year. It's so funny. Was in the All-Star game. 4 of the 5, he's allowed 2 earned runs or less. Last start against the Dodgers before the break, 6 innings, 1 earned run, 12 strikeouts, and just 1 walk. Gilbert, I talked a lot about Logan Gilbert, of course, with the injury. It's not like he's been terrible or anything like that, but he has not been vintage Logan Gilbert. His only appearance this season, again, he hasn't made a ton of starts because of the injury, into the 7th inning happened in his very first start of the season. Since then, he has not made it out of the 6th inning in any of his starts. So he just hasn't been Logan Gilbert of the past, and hopefully it turns around here for Logan Gilbert. Again, he has not been terrible. He hasn't been bad. It's just he has set the standard so high for himself. He hasn't been like Logan Gilbert. Great. All right, you see it on the rundown. The Eugenio Suarez soaring price tag is just, and we're going to talk to Duquette about this coming up in a few minutes. This price tag is going to get more and more and more for Geno Suarez. If this guy just keeps hitting more home runs. And if you're the Dodgers, if you're the Diamondbacks, you may say to yourself, well, we're not going to sell him at all. We're not going anywhere. Yes, we may not have a chance at the division, fine. But right now, we look at ourselves. I mean, they're 5.5 games back in the wild card. And I would say that's a pretty, that's a big deficit, especially when you've got 3 teams, Cardinals, Giants, Reds, all in front of them. Or they're not in front of them, but they've got, they got several teams in front of them right now. So you would say, maybe it's too much to climb, but they don't probably think they're out at 5.5. So will they end up selling? The Mariners have been mentioned, multiple reports. The Cubs, Yankees, those are kind of the 3 teams. Adam Jew of the Seattle Times posted a story about an hour and a half ago and writing about Suarez and saying, quote, the Mariners and Diamondbacks have engaged in preliminary discussions about Suarez. He went on further to write the Mariners, sources say, would welcome a reunion with Suarez over a trade there for Josh Naylor. We've talked a lot about Josh Naylor. I think they both would be great fits. I mean, obviously Suarez, because of the relationship in the past that he has had, would probably make more sense because he's already been here before. I get that. But I honestly think I would actually disagree with it and just say, looking ahead for the future of this team, Josh Naylor makes more sense than Suarez. And I think the poll is because Suarez has been here before. And I get that. I welcome Suarez. I think the addition of Suarez would be great. But I think a lot of why people would aim towards Suarez more is the good vibes only. He's been here. He's got a track record, all that. But the better fit for them, because they need more left-handers in their lineup, is Naylor. And they don't have a first baseman. Nothing. Now, you could say, well, they don't have a third baseman and Ben Williamson. Well, okay. From a glove perspective, yes, they do. I mean, that guy's got a potential to be a gold glove third baseman. Is his power ever going to come around? Clearly, that's obviously the biggest question with him. Whether or not he's ever going to be a guy that's going to slug. He's never really done it. Didn't really display it all that much in the minors. It could be something that comes with age and getting stronger and all that. He does hit, though. It's not like he's a terrible hitter. Does he get on base? No, he doesn't really walk that much. But he hits. His batting average is decent. So to me, the more pressing need would be first base. And Naylor is not only just an upgrade of what you have now, but Naylor's an upgrade, looking ahead to the future. But again, they're attached more to Suarez than they've been attached to anyone. And Suarez has been great. If you date back to last season, he's been phenomenal. Let's get the latest with the Mariners and Suarez and all these trade rumors. He joins us every single week. He is our GM. We love having him on every single week because he provides laughter insight, and knowledge. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Jim Duquette, MLB Network Radio, Sirius XM Channel 89. Follow him on Twitter, X, Jim Duquette, GM. Let's pick up right there. Adam Judah of the Seattle Times has a story. I know others have talked about it. They have been linked to Suarez for the Diamondbacks, but they're not the only ones, Jim. Mariners, Cubs, a lot of teams want him. And the price tag just seems to be going up and up if he continues to hit more home runs.
And it's going to be a lot more expensive than it was when they gave him up in the first place, what they got back in return. So, um, the interesting thing though, is, that the Cubs want him, Yankees, the Mets could use him. I don't think the Mets will pay the price. Like there are a number of teams that need third baseman, which usually is not the case. I feel like, at the deadline, this is one of those unique situations. Plus, he's an impactful bat, as we know. So, um, you know, we haven't seen a lot of, let's say, high prospect capital traded for bats at the deadline over the last few years. And this year, I think it's going to be different because there's not a lot of impactful bats out there. And Suarez is, if he's even available. I had Mike Hazen, he's the general manager of the Diamondbacks, on my show on Sunday. And he basically said, listen, I'm getting all these calls. They're all they all think we're dead in the water. And I don't, I understand why they're saying that, but I'm hoping, I think the term he used was, I'm hoping to choke the supply of players in the sellers market by going on a run ourselves in hopes that he will be a buyer as well. So like they're still not in a mode where they're looking to sell at this moment, though they could in 4 or 5 days. And if that's the case, Seattle's going to be in the mix, but he is not currently available because Arizona feels like they're still in it.
You have sat in that chair, obviously, being a GM of the Orioles and the Mets. You've covered the sport for a very long time. How much of it does he truly believe that? And then also, how much of it is that trying to get the word out? No. We're still in it. We're not looking to sell to entice other teams to raise up the price to acquire him.
So I think part of that, happens occasionally. With this, and it depends on the general manager. So like with Mike Hazen, he's about as direct as they come. Like
Okay.
I really appreciate talking with him year in and year out, especially around this time of the year, because he tells you how it is. He's been in this game for a long time. He was, coming up through the Boston Red Sox organization, but he's been a very good general manager in Arizona there for a number of years. And so, it basically, he has a commodity. He really doesn't have to sell all that much. Like, the whole industry knows how good, and I mean, we've talked about it, but how good Suarez is as a hitter, how great he is in the clubhouse. He's just a perfect fit in a lot of different ways for most teams that need offense, especially in the corner. So, or they could look at, I mean, they wouldn't look at him as a DH necessarily. I don't think anybody was, because the defense is so good. But if you were to, let's say you had a good third baseman and you had a DH spot, you could look at him to be, third base DH, and have the other third baseman third base DH, like the Padres even. I wouldn't rule out the Padres have an interest in him, even though it doesn't seem like it, because they need bats, and they could put Machado at DH and Suarez at third, and then get Manny off his feet a little bit, get Suarez off his feet. Like, he just fits in a lot of different ways. But I don't think when it comes to, kind of getting the message out there, I don't think he has to do it necessarily in secret. I think and he was upfront. He goes, "Hey, I'm fielding offers because it's my job. Do I wanna do I wanna be selling? No, I don't, and I don't plan on it. But I have to do my job and keep an open mind to be doing both." He's one of the few guys that right now that is saying he's a buyer and or a seller. A lot of them have not determined anything yet. And I have Mike Elias, who's the Orioles guy, and he said, "No, we're open for business." Like, they've struggled enough where he's being very blunt about it as well.
Okay, so then everyone wants to know the next question: what's the asking price? What are we talking about to acquire Suarez, someone who is not under contract for next season, Jim?
So, I think and I think it matters, what others have kind of given up in the past, but in the end, because there's a really a dearth of offensive players, I think it's going to cost a top 100 prospect.
Okay.
Will it be a top 50 prospect in the sport? I don't think so. But it might. It depends on how badly you want him, right? So there's some teams, like if you saw the Athletic today, there are a couple teams that are on the hot seat, a couple general managers on the hot seat. Jerry's one of them. Jerry and that whole front office a little bit on the hot seat. In terms of making sure they get to the postseason. And so when the Cubs are another. That's another one that needs. That's another team that needs a third baseman. So they have upper level prospects that they're willing to move. That's where Seattle's going to have to decide if they want to move a Montez or not. I don't know if I don't know if that's what it's going to cost. I think that's the art of the negotiation. Is if you're Mike Hazen and you decide to move Suarez. See, ideally they have a young prospect named Jordan Lawler that could go right in. He could trade Suarez and they wouldn't skip a beat and put Lawler right at third base. Yeah, there would be a little bit of a downgrade, but he's not healthy. So ordinarily he might decide to move him. Right now he has to wait. And if he doesn't get the asking price, he might just hold him and play it out. So I think it's going to have to be I'm looking at the list a little bit here. Montez, Harry Ford, they don't really need catching, but if somebody needs a catcher, upper level catcher, it'd have to be, I think, at that level if you're looking at it from Seattle side of things.
If you, knowing what you know and what you've heard and read and seen about Laz Montez, he's the number 2 prospect in their organization. Would you say, yeah, I'd give up someone like that for a rental player?
I wouldn't want to. Yeah. I mean, he has a chance to be impactful. And it's hard to have impactful homegrown offensive players. Any organization. I mean, he's highly considered. He was at the Futures game, right? They gave him a ton of money. I don't personally think. I'm just going to look at his updated numbers here, but that's a hard one for me. Even if you are on the hot seat, I'd have a hard time doing that. Now Suarez would help you in the postseason too, but man, oh man, that one's one that I think you'd end up regretting. His numbers are
because I think that the two guys and fans and everyone they fall in love with prospects, right?
Of course,
I could look at it at this. Yes, would trading someone like Laz Montez, who I've seen, I've seen a couple of times. I've seen all the video clips on social media of him. He looks the part. He's young. This is the type of player that you would look great there in right field with his size and his power and all that. And it's tantalizing and all of that. But, you look at it from side, if acquiring, Suarez leads to a World Series title, everybody and their mother would do the deal. Everyone like, all right, we'll worry about Laz Montez later, but it's the great unknown. But fans out here, when they're those hardcore fans that look at the minors and prospects, don't want to give up Montez, don't want to give up Emerson. Like those are the two guys. They're like, no thanks. Anybody but those two guys.
Well, and I think it remains to be seen if that level of guy is given up for anybody here at the deadline, right? So in a lot of ways, if you're, you might be able to match up with some kind of major league trade of some kind, right? So like a Hancock, if you'd be willing to do that. Again, we go back to this conversation of Arizona needs pitching long term. They have 2 really good starters that are going to be free agents, Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, and they'd love a controllable starting pitcher for the future. So would you consider doing Hancock, especially in light of some of the struggles there? Like you'd have to consider that potentially as well to hold on to the high end prospect. So there are ways to kind of come to this. Like you said, there's no certainty that you're going to go deep into the postseason with a Suarez. Sure. That's the hardest part, and that's what teams have kind of figured out. They have they have these, certainly they go back in time. They look at these algorithms and you're like, hey, I'm not giving up this type of guy and control and quality for a 2-month guy. Even though they could go back and re-sign Suarez too, right? But it just doesn't happen around the sport very often, and so I don't think in the end you'll have to give him up. It doesn't mean they can't get him, by the way. There's a way to, to pull that off.
Yeah, but someone like Hancock or even a Logan Evans, is that enough to acquire him?
Well, no, it wouldn't be just one guy, but I think
Those guys plus prospects.
right, that's correct. And Evans is a guy that he's pitched well enough where I'd probably be willing to move Hancock,
No.
and keep Evans, or move Evans and keep Hancock. But one of those guys plus, would definitely put them in the mix, and I'd say, a reliever, some kind of reliever maybe, or maybe it's a prospect, maybe it's, again, going down on the list a little bit with the Mariners, again, would you give up let's say a Hancock and a Ford? There's different iterations that you have to look at that, you know, you have to be willing to accept it's going to hurt, but
Right.
again, you're going to get the player in return. And I would say this, especially with some of the injuries that you're seeing with the Astros, like this is the year that
Huh.
they are vulnerable. If
I
there's
know.
any other year, I know they don't go away, but man, oh man, you see their injuries. They have the most major injuries in the major leagues right now.
I mean, my God, on Sunday they got beat by Taylor Trammell and Cooper Hummel. The Mariners.
It's
Those
tough,
are
man.
two castaways that the Mariners had.
know.
It was a spring training lineup. I mean, yeah, Paredes going down on Saturday night with the hamstring. You're right. All the injuries they've had to deal with. Pena, Alvarez has been gone all year long. They're starting pitching. I mean, just everything. That's what we've been screaming about out here all season long. Like I don't care about the wild card. You can't knock these guys off this year. Then the plan that you've built for 10 years has failed because they're completely vulnerable and they're not that good of a team. They're
not that good. They're not that good right now. Yeah, they're really not. The position player group is really bad. I can't believe Taylor Trammell's still in the major leagues at this moment. Like that's how much he's struggling. And the fact that he's actually doing it, you're going, what world are we in? Are we back 10 years ago now? Hey, where are we?
So when do you expect? I mean, Arizona right now, whether they believe they're in it, we sit here on July 22nd, so what, at 9 days away from the deadline. When do they when's the right time? When theory do they need to make this call?
I think you're going to see them make the move towards the end of this week or through the weekend. If they continue to play well, and they played well out of the break, but it can go quickly, go the other direction really fast. I think that that gives him enough time, Mike Hazen, to and he, the fact that he's making these phone calls now, he already has a sense of levels of interest for a lot of his players, not just Sanchez, Naylor, and the starters. So yeah, I think he would move quickly. He's a very decisive guy. So but I could see at least one move happening with him. By the end of the weekend, if he decides to sell, and then into next week, there's still plenty of time because Thursday's the deadline. So, I think that's the art of it too, when it comes to the GM is, all right, if you're going to be on the fence, which is where they are, Ben, you better be doing your homework on both sides of it. And he has been. I've been talking a lot, talked to probably 18 GMs now over the last week to 10 days. And, it's the worst part to be. I think we've said this before. Worst spot to be is on the fence, but that's where Arizona is at the moment.
I made this argument before he came on. Maybe you heard it. To me, Naylor would make. I understand the allure of Suarez because he's been here before, and he's a very good player. I'm not discounting anything about him, but with where they're at from an organizational standpoint and just projecting ahead with their lineup, I make an argument that Josh Naylor makes more sense for them than Suarez. He's 6 years younger and he plays first base, which they have nothing right now at first base. There's nothing on the horizon at first base. Whereas at least I can tilt my head a little bit and look at Ben Williamson and go, okay, yes, the power isn't there, but the glove's there. The average is there. He hits, but the power is not that yet there. So I could see him playing third base for a good period of time. What would if they've said, at least the report from Adam Jude, that they're more focused on Suarez than Naylor.
Right.
If they or another team were to go after Josh Naylor, is it a similar package that Suarez, or is it more?
No, I think it's a similar package. For Naylor, the hard part um, is, yeah, he's younger. He's also going to be a free agent. Naylor is. So like it's the same kind of situation. He
Sure.
doesn't catch the ball and defend like Suarez does.
Okay.
So I could create an argument that it might be less. And if that's the case, that would be of interest too. Left-handed power. He's a great energy guy.
Mm-hmm.
So good guy to have in your clubhouse. He has hit really good pitching. He did last year in the postseason. So yeah, I wouldn't totally rule him out. I just for the fit for now, I think
Yeah.
Suarez is the best fit. Naylor might be the good fit, beyond this year. So for the long term.
Okay, so beyond this year, but is this going to be a decision that Jerry Dipoto makes? You had referenced this article in the Athletic that came out this morning. Jim Bowden, who of course you work with and do shows with at Sirius XM, talking about several front office people that are on the hot seat, and he lists Jerry Dipoto. And said the Mariners' window to win a World Series won't stay open forever. The club must take advantage of its strong starting pitching in Cal Raleigh. How much pressure is on this front office to do something at this deadline, not only to make this team better, but part of it is, right, kind of saving your own ass a little bit.
There's definitely a CYA. Cover it. Cover it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do think every team kind of feels pressure this time of the year, but he does just because the postseason appearances have been far and few between. For some of the teams that they've had and marched out there. So, and the expectation level and the fan base that that's put the beauty of the fan base puts pressure on them. And ownership hears it. They may not feel like it some days, but ownership does feel it. They don't want to have this type of negativity hanging around the club. If they don't get it done, it wouldn't shock me if they made a change. But in the interim, to our points here, yeah, I think they will do something. I mean, that's all of the conversation that we keep hearing. And again, it's just we had this conversation the last two seasons, and it's
Yeah.
been just kind of meh, overall. But if they are going to do it, I think this is the year that you're going to see, a better prospect, leave rather than that, okay, major league for major league type of deal that many times happens with the Mariners.
Hey, Jim, what bullpen arms make sense for them? Who's going to be on the market? Because that's another one that we've talked about before. Is they need to add some depth to that bullpen.
There's a ton of bullpen guys. We put the over under on my show today of 20 arms that would get traded. I think it'll
Ooh.
be over. Every year it's over. I mean, there are some like Pete Fairbanks with Tampa, who's like very good. Cade Smith, who's under control with Cleveland. Posse, who has been on the market for the late from last winter to now. Like those are the most impactful. We'll see where Minnesota goes, but they have Griffin Jacks, who's also a really good name.
Duran.
Um, Duran
Yeah.
potentially could be available. Absolutely. The Cardinals just said yesterday that they're more likely to sell, so that makes Ryan Helsley available.
Well,
Phil Maton was good for the Mets last year. He's a kind of a sneaky guy that could be good. Estevez with the Royals. There are so many of them. I think that should not be difficult to fill at some point. The only issue is that usually happens late. Like those happen quickly, and you
mhm.
see a flurry of moves on Wednesday and Thursday before the deadline is over, where the guys are just flying everywhere. So that one, if you need a second one, you're likely to go, let's say, to the Orioles and try to get a Sir Anthony Dominguez, who isn't an impactful guy anymore, but he's relief depth. There's guys like that out there all the
What
time.
about is Bautista has been talked about?
Batista's name. So we had Mike Elias on the other day. It sounded like they were what he used the term they're passive about fielding calls about controllable pieces. That's code for if you make the right deal and you want to overpay, we'll do it.
Yeah.
So, Batista, he would consider, I think, in a situation, but it would be, I think, difficult for him to give him up. So you're going to have to give up a top couple of prospects. Again, that one probably isn't top 50, but it would be a top 100 and another guy potentially for Batista, because you've got him under control.
You had Craig Breslow on, I think it was on
Mm-hmm.
Sunday, and he talked about, hey,
Yep.
listen, we're going all in. We're going to try and improve this baseball team. At the same time, it's interesting. I just got done with the Red Sox Netflix series a few weeks ago.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
Jarren Duran. Why is Jarren Duran? I understand that there is a log in the outfield. Is that the only reason why Duran has been mentioned so many places as a trade candidate?
I think so. His name has been mentioned a couple different times. I'll tell you, he's one of the more popular Red Sox with their fans. Like, he spends time signing autographs for. I mean, he'll time spend an hour, up to an hour signing. It's well documented, obviously, the mental health issues that he has had in his career. But he's a really talented player. He's not having as good of a year this year as he did last year, obviously. But he could play center field and left field. He's that type of player. So I think the only reason why you're hearing it is because they have a bunch of younger players,
right,
that are under control. They have guys in their system too on their way up, and they'd rather hold on to the impactful guys, and maybe see what they could get some type of major league trade for Durant.
Hey, some other baseball just notes before I let you go that doesn't have anything to do with trades. There's another Yankees incident with this sign stealing. Jazz Chisholm now involved in it with the Braves and got into it with who's it? Eddie Perez. Is that the third base, or is that the coach? Right,
coach. Yep, bench coach
for Atlanta, who made a Chisholm's obviously stealing the signs, signaling it to the hitter. The coach Perez is caught on a camera video, like pointing at his head. People are reading into it. Are you saying next time if you do that again, we're going to throw at you? Right. He said afterwards, no, that wasn't it. That I'm just telling him to be smarter about it. The I get the unwritten rule of stealing signs in the sport, but they are just like shoving it in people's faces about how obvious they are about it.
Right.
I mean, should there be some type of punishment at all for them?
I think that's what stands out. Now, over the course of time, that's always been allowed. Like, if you aren't here's the thing. It should be more difficult to pick up signs because of the signals now, right?
Right, with
so
the pitch comm.
with the pitch comm and everything else, like, you should not be able to figure this out. So if a pitcher is dumb enough to show the grip of the baseball, which is, again, this is not viewable to the pitch to the hitter who's that way, but it is to second base out there. So just turn your glove and face it towards you. Like, it's an easy fix. I don't understand these pitchers. Yeah, every pitcher will tip occasionally, so that's what pitchers will tell you, and that's one of the they should be checking at that. But it really is on them, and that's where the thing. I like I like what Eddie Perez did. I would have loved to seen the Mariners do something like that too. Just, hey, put them on notice. We're not going to put up with that, right?
Yeah.
But in the end, it's really up to the pitcher to fix that.
Okay. Yeah. Ichiro Suzuki will go into the Hall of Fame Sunday.
Love it.
Kira, your thoughts of watching him from afar and his impact on the sport of baseball?
So I don't know if I've shared this with you or not, but when there was a bidding war for Ichiro and Mariners gave him I think it was a $13 million bonus. I was with the Mets. We were second place. Now, you don't get any awards for second place, but we loved Ichiro back then. We argued that our owner wanted us to show just enough interest so that we did come in second place. He really didn't want to write that check like the Mariners did. And we'll go, all of us that were in the front office, we'll go to our graves believing that he wanted a second place finish. Our owner did. But when you look at the unbelievable ability to hit, to the bat the ball skills, the speed component, like the elite level hit tool, but also the defender that he was. Um, this was one of the easier no-brainer Hall of Famers. He just needed to stay healthy, and he brought awareness and popularity to the sport, Major League Baseball, to Japan. Yeah, he was the first. All these guys, Otani, Yamamoto, they're I think, getting their profile has been raised because of what Ichiro did. and the level of his success gave them the impetus and the desire to make Major League Baseball a goal for them. So he has had a major impact in the sport, not only as a player, but what he has brought to the expectation level to the Japanese born player who wants to come here to the States.
Do you think if you had offered him more money, he would have been a Met? Did he like? How was your meetings with him? Did he like the idea of being a New York Met?
From our conversations, he was okay. He was fine coming to New York, and I think it was all about the money. Certainly, it was a blind bid. From what I remember, the bid,
Yes.
like whoever won the bid, then had the opportunity to negotiate. So I don't think he would have, um, you know, wanted to not come to New York. Obviously, it would have been a whole different, you know, uh, you know, career path and everything else. But I think he ended up in the right place, obviously. And I think that in the end, it would have been a much higher, let's say, profile, but there would have been a spotlight on him. It was a spotlight in Seattle, but it would have been just a huge, bright spotlight in New York. And I don't know, some people can't handle it. I shortly thereafter, I signed Kaz Matsui, who
Yeah.
was impactful in Japan, the Japanese league, and he did not want any part of the New York spotlight and did not play well for us as the Met. He played well once he left. So, we don't know. You never know if they can handle New York or not.
Yeah. Well, it'd be special. I mean, it's just an incredible career.
Oh, can't wait.
And I think that the pressure that he had to deliver for not just himself, but for an entire country. And I've thought about this a lot this week, that if he doesn't perform the way he did, maybe there is no Shohei Ohtani,
Yeah.
Seiya Suzuki. I mean, all these position players that there were no position players before him. You know what I mean? It was just pitchers, and
it was Nomo, and then
Yeah.
a host of people came after Nomo.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
he was the guy. He really cleared the path for other position
He
players
did.
to come. There's
He
no
did.
question on it.
Jim, I appreciate it. Kept you
Okay.
too long today. There's so much to cover. Look forward to our visit next week as we get closer even to the deadline than we are now. I appreciate it. We'll talk
All
next
right.
week.
Talk next week. See you.
There he is, Jim Duquette, MLB Network Radio, Sirius XM Channel 89. Great stuff in there. Go read the athletic story by his co-host on his GM show on Sirius XM, Jim Bowden, talking about GMs, front office people on the hot seat. Mentions Jerry DiPoto. There's an article also by Adam Jude of the Seattle Times. Go to seattletimes.com. Jude writing early this morning that the Mariners have had preliminary discussions with the Arizona Diamondbacks about Eugenio Suarez. He writes further, they prefer Suarez over someone like Josh Naylor. All right, we go from baseball now to, I think, a very calm and normal, and they really got their stuff together sport, college football. And joining us from Las Vegas is the one and only John Canzano from johncanzano.com. He's at Big Ten Media Day in Big Ten country, Las Vegas, Nevada.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. How's Vegas?
It's great. I'm at the Mandalay Bay Convention Center. You can see behind me, they've got everything set up. You've got the Big Ten Network ready to roll. Tony Petitti, the Big Ten Conference Commissioner, is going to kick off this 3-day event with his address. He'll do about 30 minutes on the main stage behind me, and then they'll break off into these individual sessions. I'm going to give you a little tour here, Puck. Can I do that?
Sure.
Yeah, these individual kind of stations that are set up around the room where they're going to let the athletes and coaches kind of talk individually. You can see they're numbered 1 through 11. Because there are 11 teams in the Big Ten? No, because just 1 through 11, and that's what they're gonna go with. But a lot of questions for Petitti. He and Greg Sankey probably have more power than any conference commissioners in any sport in history right now. They're going to shape-shift this thing and decide what it's going to become. Is there any kind of holistic viewpoint? Or is this just about, hey, we got to get what's ours? We'll find a little bit about that out. Plus, he's going to have to talk about the playoff format today and a number of other things. But I'm excited. Jed Fish will be here tomorrow. Dan Lanning tomorrow. I should have one-on-ones with those guys. But, what's on your mind?
Well, what's on my mind is how good you were there with the camera and walking around. I mean, you must be married to someone who used to be in television
I
because
get,
you
yeah,
nailed the stand-up and you're
yeah.
nailing it right now. You're showing everyone what's going on. You've set the scene.
We're bringing people here. We're
Man,
bringing
you're
people
good.
here to
Does
Vegas,
she
which I love.
train you? I mean, how does it?
Everything, everything top to bottom. Yeah, you got it.
It is. God, it's just weird the changing landscape and to see like this this Midwestern conference now
Yeah.
having it in Las Vegas is just so odd. I want to touch in more about the Big Ten. You brought up Greg Sankey because I want to get into this whole SEC Big Ten and the college football playoff format and what they all want. Let's get to the story that came out yesterday. I mean, this college football is so nuts. So Memphis just says to the Big 12, we'll give you $250 million. We want to buy ourselves into your conference. And the Big 12 says, no, we're good.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, I'm not surprised that this happened. I mean, we saw it with SMU basically, and maybe to a lesser degree, but stunned by that, not stunned, and now what does this mean for Memphis moving forward? A reunion? I mean, not a reunion, but is this? No. Can we get the 250 to the Pac-12?
Yeah, and I'm interested to find out whether or not there will be a pivot by Memphis and maybe UNLV, because UNLV is also sitting around thinking they're going to get an invitation to the Big 12. I think the Big 12 told us yesterday they don't have an appetite for more expansion. They don't want more mouths in the feeding trough, not even at a discount, not even at, hey, we'll take no money for 5 years and you can rescind our membership if we're not adding value. They just don't want to entertain taking on additional teams and additional members. So I think it's really interesting to look at that. I'm a little surprised that Memphis put all their cards on the table. I mean, they went all in, said, here's our offer. They get turned down. What do they do now? Was this a move that Memphis made because they've got a little bit of a leadership issue? Is it a move that they made because they're desperate to get to the Power Four? I do think it shows us that there's going to be a dividing line right there around, 48 schools that get to whatever comes next. And everybody's eager to get into the top 60 or so that they can get to the top 48. The next 5 years are going to be fascinating, but I was a little surprised at that number. I'm not surprised that the Big 12 said no. They also said no to Gonzaga. You remember they had them on hold, forever. Were they going to be allowed into the conference? And UNLV thinks they're getting in, or they think there's an invitation coming. I think it's a big sign that these invites are not coming for these schools, and that you're going to have to do whatever is in your control in the next 5 years to position yourself for what comes next.
Yeah. It's just amazing. Okay, so does now this open a door? Does Teresa Gould go back to Memphis? I mean, they had, right? You talked about this. They had an offer to them, and Memphis said no, I believe, correct?
Yes. They gave Memphis a term sheet. They gave Memphis, Tulane, South Florida some term sheets. Basically, it was the opening of a conversation and a negotiation, and immediately Memphis shut that down by issuing that statement along with the other schools. Hey, we're staying in the American. I do think there's a question here for Teresa Gould. Do you go back to Memphis and look like you're the fallback conference? Or given that Memphis has now given up all their leverage, Puck, do you just kind of let them be and you go, hey, we have the better conference in the Pac-12 and you had your chance to join? I think it'll be really interesting to see what she does there. I think it removes some leverage from UNLV as well, because if the Rebels were holding out hope that they were going to get an invite, look at how the Big 12 responded to Memphis. Like, there's not an invitation coming for UNLV or anybody else right now. Oregon State, Washington State, no, they're not getting an invitation to the Big 12. You've got to put your head down and you've got to increase your brand, win in football, try to get to the playoff, and then hope that when there is, when Petiti and Sankey get finished, deciding what they want to do to college football, you hope that you can be a part of it.
Do you think Brett Yormark would look at UNLV, though, and go, I kind of like them better than I like Memphis? I mean, do you think that door is completely shut on them?
I just think the Big 12, there's some problems with Memphis that relate to the NCAA sanctions that go back, a few years ago. So there's some problems there, and they're not perfect. But I think the Power Four schools basically have voted and said, hey, we have all the brands and all the markets we want. And really, we're not talking about those conferences, Puck. Let's be real. We're talking about the TV partners. We're talking about Fox and ESPN. They have basically said, we have what we want. We can piecemeal off a Boise State. We can grab the Pac-12 on a lower tier package, but we have the conferences that we really want and we feel like we have to have. And we did it with consolidation. And so I don't think there's that much of an appetite for UNLV. As the Big Ten is proving today, you can get into Vegas without having UNLV. Sure. Pac-12 played championship events in Vegas, and I think the Pac-12 will still play championship events in Vegas moving forward. I think that's where they want to be. I don't think you have to have UNLV to get into Vegas, but UNLV's on that dividing line. They're one of the group of 6 schools that adds value. They have some value. So does Memphis. There aren't that many that have value, and the Pac-12 has most of them.
Okay, so you've brought this up, and this has been a big topic here in the last week or two. This debate between the SEC and the Big Ten, who are just running college football now, especially when it comes to the College Football Playoff Committee. I had to remind myself we go to the expanded. We go to 12 this year, but it's not not the format that they want to change once the TV deal changes in 26, and that's what these two conferences are focused on right now. They're not in agreement on how many automatic qualifiers get in. Big Ten wants something a little bit more radical than what the SEC wants, correct?
Correct. Yeah. And we're going to hear about it in just a few minutes. I mean, Tony Petitti's, everybody else did an hour-long presentation. Greg Sankey talked for an hour. Jim Phillips this morning, the ACC commissioner, talked for an hour. Brett Yormark talked for an hour. Petitti's doing 30 minutes here. And he's been a guy who's been reluctant or reticent to get in front of the camera and speak. And maybe that's true clout. Like, Phil Knight doesn't need to hold a news conference, right? He just talks. And so maybe Tony Petitti is leaning into that a little bit. But I've got a one-on-one with him later today, and I really want to drill down on, is there a holistic view here, or is this just about Tony Petitti and the Big Ten and Greg Sankey and the SEC getting everything they can get, making sure all their schools get into, this thing that's coming in 5 or 6 years, and then there's very little room for anybody else. Like, there's not a national feel to this conference. It's just a heavy concentration of Midwestern schools and Southeastern schools, and that's what major college football is going to be. But we're going to hear in just a few minutes how hardline Tony Petitti is when it comes to this playoff. And I'm supposed to talk to Pat Chun, the Washington AD, tomorrow as well. He's been a supporter of that. It's funny how when your office moves from Pullman to Seattle, your viewpoint changes. It's just, is anybody looking out for the greater good? And does anybody have this holistic view that most of us have when it comes to our college football and our love for the sport?
So for those who don't know, what the Big Ten wants is suggesting what is it, a 4?
Yeah, they want 4 automatics.
They want 4 automatics, and but they want the SEC to have 4 as well. So they want 8 of the 12 to be from those two conferences.
They want to basically, they're saying we want to codify this before there's a game played. We know we have 8 teams in, and then we might have more between those two conferences. We might have more because of the at-larges, and everybody else is going, hold on, wait a minute. Play this thing out. Decide it on the field. What are we talking about? You moved from the BCS system to the playoff system because you wanted humans involved. Now they're saying we don't want humans involved. Let's just guarantee that you're going to get your top 4 teams in, and then we'll figure out. Let the humans decide who the at-large teams are. Brett Yormark and Jim Phillips, the 2 commissioners in the Big 12 and the ACC, along with Teresa Gold, along with Tim Pernetti of the American, all lining up and going, hey, man, conference champion should get in. Everything else should be an at-large. But Tony Petitti has been really dug in, saying he wants 4. He wants 4 automatics for his conference, 4 for the SEC. And we'll hear today how hardline is he with that.
Why is the SEC not on board? Is it because they would have to, part of it, they'd have to add another conference game?
They probably are looking at adding another conference game to have the playing field appear level if they're going to get 4 in. They also have done very well, Puck, under this existing system with at-larges. And I think there is a little bit more of a viewpoint of the greater good from coming from Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner. You think about his background. He grew up on college conferences. That's where his jobs were. He was the head of intramurals at his first job and when he was in college. And so now he's a conference commissioner. He's got all this authority. I do think there is a little bit of the pumping of the brakes going, hey, wait a minute. This has historically done well for the SEC. They have dominated in the last 12 years under this playoff format. Aside from the last 2 years where they didn't have the champion, they've done really well. And I think they feel really good about, hey, let's just slow our roll here on going to an automatic 4. But I kind of like that Sankey and Petitti don't agree here. And I think it's we can hold out hope that like there will be a check and balance at the top, because if they're in alignment and they both say we want 4 automatics, nobody's stopping them, Puck.
Right. All right. Over to football. How come they don't do a media poll anymore? When do we get rid of that? I always like the media polls, even though like most of you guys always get it wrong, but they're fun to look at, and then to hold it up against everyone at the end of the year. When do they get rid of that?
They figured out that media poll can be a bad thing in the end. And for Arizona State, it was a great example last year. All year long, people were like, this is the last place. This team was picked last in the Big 12. This team was picked last. How can this team possibly be a playoff candidate? It was picked last by the people who know the conference the best. And so they felt like in the end, in the Big 12, that got held up against Arizona State. Now, it didn't keep them out of the playoff, but it could have been a small deciding factor, because it just sort of sets the parameters like that AP preseason poll does in the early part of the year. We find out like maybe LSU and USC wasn't the matchup that we thought it was a year ago, right at the beginning of the year. But it shapes the early part of the polls. And you look last year at how Arizona State was really downvoted in the early part of the season. Part of that was sort of the narrative within that conference. And so I think these conferences have figured out like, hey, let's just play this out and let's not worry too much about like where we think teams and coaches should finish, because that can ultimately be used against us when the playoff committee starts getting together and looking at teams. Yeah.
All right. Well, what's the buzz on Washington and Oregon? What are the expectations you think for both those schools?
Well, it's interesting because there's a 3-day event here, and each of the 3 days, the Big Ten has very strategically set this up. Ohio State finishes the day today, then it's Michigan, then it's Penn State. Like they didn't put them all on the same day, Puck. It's clear that the Big Ten views those 3 programs as their 3 tentpole programs. Aside from that, you've got Oregon and Washington going tomorrow together. I have questions about Oregon, especially on the defensive side. They didn't look good against Ohio State and Penn State to finish the year on defense. They dominated everybody else, but you have to play well against the top teams in this conference to win it. What is Dan Lanning and Tosh Lupoi as coordinator done there? They've lost a whole bunch of defensive players. Have they replaced them? And then Jed Fish, it's a size thing. He had complained all year that they weren't big enough, they weren't physical enough to compete in the Big Ten. Then he went out and recruited big, giant guys. But can you pivot that fast, or will it take him 2 or 3 years? We'll find out.
Well, he's got one of the most exciting quarterbacks, though, on his roster in the country. That's just not in that conference in the country.
Yeah, I agree. I think he could be a Heisman Trophy winner. Like, not just he could win it if Jed Fish can get him the guys. But the question is, can you get it done fast enough? And in a world where it's very mercurial and transient, can you hold DeMond Williams Jr. there? Remember last year against Oregon, he got sacked like 11 times. He had a terrific night throwing the ball. I've never seen anything more ridiculous than watching a guy get sacked 10 or 11 times and then have a great passing night as well. So I think he's going to be a really exciting, fun player to watch, of course.
I'm curious if the Big Ten and other conferences go along with this. You mentioned the ACC announced this morning the injury reports. This is something that I think a lot of people have been asking for a very long time, especially now with all these sports, especially college athletics getting into sports gambling. Injury reports are going to be required now in football, men's basketball, women's basketball, baseball, and all conference games. Football reports will be issued 2 days before with an update one day before, and then another update on game day. Do you think other conferences are going to follow this?
Yeah, I think they are. And I think, we know what it's rooted in. It's rooted in gambling. Sure. And it's, we've seen so many problems with the NBA and Major League Baseball as it pertained to players violating and interpreters violating the law. I'll be curious to see how this goes with college kids, and how surprised will we be when things on the injury report or things that aren't on the injury report get leaked. Mm-hmm. But, this is aimed at trying to level the playing field for gamblers. This is definitely DraftKings and FanDuel and the other agencies that are in sports wagering saying, hey, we need a little bit more control here over making sure that everything is on the up and up. But, I'm sad that Chip Kelly's not part of this anymore, because I would love to see what he would do in an injury report, and we'll find out what these guys are going to do. But we'll see today. Does Tony Petitti support that? Does the Big Ten support that? We'll find out here in a couple minutes.
Tell me when you got to go. Just put like your fingers up to your ears like you're getting like your producer's talking.
Well, when they start talking, we'll just go when they start talking. We got about 4 or 5 minutes.
Okay, all right.
Before they start going. You can see the room is starting to fill up, and the Big Ten Network behind me is probably going to get annoyed because we're broadcasting on top of their broadcast.
Oh, and the best thing is the Big Ten Network, isn't it just all the old Pac-12 people?
Yeah.
Isn't it like Ashley Amundsen and is it Yogi Roth?
I can't even tell who's on the stage, but I did see Yogi. Ashley will be here, of course.
Yeah.
I saw Gaia Haberman, who was a Pac-12 network guy. Yeah, it's show business, not show friends.
Yeah, no, I get it. Do you? What do you think? I'm jaded because I'm one of the fans of the school left out, right? But the appetite for college football right now still at an all-time high and getting higher, or do you think it's crested at all?
I think at the top of the game, like when it comes to the playoff and the playoff ratings and stuff like that, and big football games, I think all season long you're going to have these networks tell us this was the most watched game in 5 years. Look at the numbers, look at the millions of people who are tuning in. This means college football is healthy. But I think that's a bad marker. I don't think you can judge college football and the health of college football based on the top events. I think you have to look at, how is attendance across college football? What is viewership like across college football? What's viewership like in week 3 when it's not a big time matchup? How does that compare to 2 weeks ago or 2 years ago or whatever? But I really do think there are more people, Puck, who are disenfranchised, disillusioned, turned off by what they're seeing. And part of it is what's going on here with the Big Ten and the SEC trying to run away with it all. There was nobody looking out for the greater good. There was nobody looking out for the sport. And I do wonder, how much of it was bad leadership with Larry Scott, George Kliavkoff that really tipped this thing when the Pac-12 got consolidated, or how much of it was this was inevitable and the TV networks, ESPN and Fox, were at it no matter what. I know there's a documentary being made that involves the Pac-12 that deals with sort of the chess game that ESPN and Fox were playing behind the scenes. And I find it very interesting, Puck, that as the new look Pac-12 goes to put together their long-term media deal, I don't think ESPN's coming in as a major partner. I don't think Fox is going to be a major partner. I think they're going with CBS. I think they're going with probably the TNT crew and Turner. And I think they're going to go with the CW. And I don't think that's accidental. I think the Pac-12 is going, we didn't have support and interest in our product. We're going to go elsewhere. So we'll see. They're getting going.
We got music playing. Let me just squeeze one more. Yeah. Blazers fans' reaction to Adam Silver's comments about the arena relocation, all that. What's the mood? What was the mood in Portland after that?
There's always hand wringing. Okay, the Blazer fans are always going to be nervous about Seattle and the potential for the team to be moving. But it sure was code from Adam Silver that sounded like 2008. It sounded like the Sonics. It sounded like Oklahoma City. This sounded like a message to Portland and a potential owner getting into Portland that, hey, you're going to need a new arena or have to make massive improvements to an arena. I think he's playing a poker game. If I'm the NBA, I do not want to cannibalize Seattle and Vegas as my next two NBA markets. There's $10 or $12 billion in those two markets. Why would you sell Portland and let them move somewhere and relocate? Doesn't make any sense. So I think Portland probably keeps the team, but it sure made people anxious.
Yeah. All right, go cover the press conference. You did a wonderful job on this. Reporting live from Las Vegas, John Canzano for Puck Sports. See you. There he is, John Canzano, johncanzano.com. Go read all of his work there as he covers the Big Ten media days that are taking place in Las Vegas. Several teams having their press conferences today. Washington, by the way, will have their press conference tomorrow. I saw the time. I can't remember what it was. I think 11 o'clock-ish. And so the Jed Fish will talk to the media then, and we'll kick off the upcoming season there in college football, which, again, it's easy for me to say, oh, God, my excitement's a little not as much as it once was. Well, that's expected because look at the conference, look at the competition they're now in. I mean, it's, I bleed crimson and gray, but I acknowledge that it's an afterthought conference. It's an afterthought schedule. I mean, look at the schedule this year. I mean, Louisiana Tech and James Madison. I mean, you got Ole Miss, got Oregon State twice, and that's fun. But it's just not the same as playing. I know you got Washington, but it's not the same of playing Arizona State, Arizona, UCLA, Utah, Oregon. It's just not. And it's not going to be for several years. And then you are kind of part of a conference right now that is very much on the outside looking in. So it's easy for me to be down on the sport. I don't know if that's necessarily shared by everyone that loves college football. I love college football. I love Saturdays. Did it take a hit last year? Yeah, to a degree, because there's just so much going on. There's so much changes with realignment and the landscape of the sport. Unfortunately, I think I'll look back, 10, 15 years from now and just say it was a mistake. And you can say, well, of course you're going to say that because you're on the outside looking in. I think a lot of people are going to say that. There are stories that have detailed from a number of schools, including even USC, financial troubles because of what has happened with this, realignment, rescheduling of the traveling cross country for a lot of these different sports. What makes, and we all can agree on this, what makes college sports, just not football, but just all of it, is the regionality of it. Now you've really only have two conferences, well, really one conference, the SEC, that has still a regional component to it. Even the Big Ten is just expanding and has added Maryland and Nebraska. And, then that was the first sign when like Maryland and Rutgers and Nebraska got into the Big Ten. You're like, what? How? Why? And then, an extension of the two LA schools in Washington and Oregon. I mean, they just can agree on this one. We can agree to disagree on whether or not this move was right for these schools from a financial standpoint. Clearly it was right for them, or they wouldn't have made it. But from a big picture, was it right? Is it right for the health of the sport? As John had kind of noted there, a couple of times, holistically, you're looking out for the best of the sport. And it's hard for people that are in power to look what is best holistically for the entire sport, not just the big programs and the big conferences, but for everyone. And, what is best for, this sport from a big picture was to have it be regional. And college football has always been monstrous, always been. There was nothing that they needed to do to consolidate and have these super conferences to make it even bigger. It's never going to catch the NFL, but it was already there. It's already bigger than the NBA. It's bigger than Major League Baseball. It's bigger than hockey. Second biggest sport. It's been that way for a while. But people in power want more. It's greed. More. That's, the kind of the situation you're seeing right now with the Big Ten stance on the college football playoff changes, coming up next season. They want more of the pie. And I think maybe to a degree, the SEC probably wants the same thing, and they're probably not opposed to that model. But also they're saying to themselves, we already get a bunch of teams into the playoffs. We don't need to actually have 4 automatic qualifiers because we're already get them in. Because we can wheel and deal behind the scenes to make sure that we have our spot. Because make no mistake about it, I mean, this is what makes the college football playoff committee such a joke. I mean, an absolute joke. You have sitting athletic directors on it, making the decisions who's going to be in it. And they are at times athletic directors from school, sometimes involved in it, but then athletic directors who are, indirectly, or I guess even directly involved in it because one of their schools in their conference is in it, and our commissioners, it's just, you have people that benefit because another team is going to get it because the whole conference benefits. And it's clearly run by the networks. I mean, you don't think these TV networks and ESPN have any influence whatsoever on what teams get picked? You're a fool. You're an absolute fool if you don't think that there's behind the scenes politicking going on and lobbying going on behind the scenes. I mean, they've got a 2-hour, 3-hour lobbying show on their network every Saturday morning called Game Day. It's what they do. Just watch it. That's also part of the changes that I haven't liked the last few years. That's just not fun anymore like it once was. So yeah, it's It's still going to be popular. It's still going to be massive. John's right. The ratings will still be through the roof. You will tune in. I think what makes the sport bigger and better, and when I want to see more of these big schools playing each other, the cross-country trips and all of that. But, I just think that there could have been a way to handle this and still make a ton of money. Networks get paid, all of it, without ruining what made that sport special and continues to make it special. And but that ship has sailed. Maybe it comes back, maybe it doesn't. But it has changed, and this not the realignment's not the only thing. It's the NIL world of college athletics now. I was just early this morning, for some reason, perusing the Washington State roster, and I'm just going through it and looking at some stories and that they have up there on Coug Fan, and I'm looking at this roster and I'm like, recognize anybody? I mean, no one. I mean, there's a few names, but you look through it, I'm like, I mean, I don't even know who these guys are. And that's a trend in almost every single program across America. It's just this new influx of talent that comes in, and it's just rinse and repeat every single year. And so it's just the gone are the years where you watch some, kid that the recruiting day walks in and you're like, oh, I can't wait to see what he looks like in 2-3 years. That's over, because if he doesn't play right away, he's gone. And so you never get to see that player develop all the way, and he gets a junior and gets his chance to perform on the field. I don't know. It is forever. The sport has forever changed, and I think it's a healthy debate whether or not that sport has forever changed there for the good. All right, be sure to check in on Canzano's work. Again, johncanzano.com. They've done away with the Media Day poll, so there's no official poll that's come out. But as we mentioned there before, Jed Fish of Washington will speak tomorrow, along with Dan Lanning and Oregon. And for Washington, you look at their team right now. I don't know what they have like on their offensive line and all that one. All I know is that they've got one of the most exciting quarterbacks, who again still unproven. But when you look at him, you're like, okay, I get it. Certainly, if you compare Washington and Oregon, you take Damon Williams over, who's it, Moore? Is that the quarterback for Oregon? Yeah, take him. That kid's got a chance to be real special. So be interesting to see and where they're at, and we'll see if the old Cougs can knock them off there in September. Get them around the legs, get them around the ankles, and that will be a fun game, obviously, because that will kind of be a throwback to the old Pac-10 days. The old Apple Cup. Also, if you're just joining us, we had Jim Duquette on earlier. Just to recap what Duquette said there on the Major League Baseball trading deadline. The Suarez package just continues to soar. 36 home run. He hit his 36 yesterday. Adam Jude's got a story up at the SeattleTimes.com. They've noting that the M's and Diamondbacks have had preliminary discussions on a new deal, on a trade. What would it take? We went through all the prospects there with Duquette earlier today. You can pull this trade off. One would think you could pull this trade off with not having to give up Emerson Montez. And I just think for the Mariners, those guys are untouchable. Well, let me backtrack. They're untouchable for that. Whether they would be untouchable for something else that we don't know about that's out there, perhaps, but not for Suarez. And I don't think that's what it's going to take, even with the competition from the Yankees, also the Cubs. I still will make the point, and again, I don't want to come across that I don't want Suarez. I just think you make the point that I think Naylor is a better fit for this team, because it could be a great fit this year. I mean, they both would be great, but then a great fit moving forward. And yes, I think some have said, well, hey, he's going to want a new contract. I know, you give him a new contract. That's part of it. You make the deal, and then you entice him with a new deal. You could clearly get him a new deal and sign him to contract there in the offseason. Maybe you can get Suarez and then get Naylor in the offseason. I'm just saying that from an age standpoint, 6 years younger, at a position that you really don't have anything. If you look at their system, there is no first baseman on the horizon. You can make an argument. They have a third baseman, Ben Williamson. He does not have the power of Suarez, has not shown that but everything else is there for him. But with that being said, should not, just because they like Ben Williamson, which they do, should not prevent them from going in getting Suarez. I just laugh at this, though, from a Mariners standpoint, that they are so linked to Geno Suarez now when they had him. They had him. And the only reason, this is why every time I hear them say, and I think that's, it's in probably every article that you're going to see, it's in every interview that Justin Hollander will do up until the deadline or even after the deadline. It will be every interview that Jerry DiPoto did, and I know he sat down with Jude, I think, during the All-Star break. I roll my eyes when I hear this, anyone say, especially those two, saying we have the financial flexibility to do anything we want. No, they don't. That's a lie. And it's been a lie you've been told for X amount of years. They don't have financial flexibility. They don't have the full support from ownership. The ownership doesn't just open up their wallet and say, yeah, let's do whatever you want. They got rid of the guy they're trying to reacquire right now, with most likely giving up a top 50 prospect. They already had him, and they gave him up because money. They didn't want to pay him. That's why they gave him up. He was owed $11 million in 24. They had a club option for 15. They didn't want to pay him. What'd they do with that money that they saved? They gave it to Mitch Garver, who's been an unmitigated disaster for this team. Unmitigated disaster. So when they talk about how, we've got insurances. Well, ownership's going to give us what we want. It's a lie. It's not true. Just not. It's GM speak. It's DiPoto talk. Doesn't have it, and it's irritating. I get excited, and it almost comes off as I don't want them to get Suarez. I do. I'm just irritated that they already had this guy here, and there was no reason to get rid of him. There was none. Zero. Clubhouse glue guy. Good player. Made himself into a hell of a defender, by the way, when he got here, working with Perry Hill. And you got rid of him for, do you remember what they got in return? Carlos Vargas and Zebby Zavala. You got to go read. I got to find this art. I should have saved it. Because there's a quote from DiPoto when they made this deal. And damn it, when I read it last night, I should have just kept and saved it. He's got a quote in there. I'm not going to find it right now. I guarantee it, because they're just going to pull up all the trades talking about today. He says at the end, I'm going to paraphrase, that adding Carlos Vargas and Zebby Zavala make our major league roster deeper and better for the future. He doesn't even believe that. First of all, I don't even know where Zebby Zavala is now. Is he out of baseball? Nothing. And then Carlos Vargas, good. I'm not going to bitch too much about Carlos Vargas. He's been good. But you traded a guy that since last June 25th, you traded a guy who has hit like 280, slugs over 600 since last June 25th of last year. He has since that time, the third most home runs in baseball, behind Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani. And you dealt him because of the exact opposite of having financial security from your ownership group. You had zero financial security. That's why you got rid of him, for Carlos Vargas. That's what you traded him for. And now I just think it's funny how, we're targeting Suarez to bring him back. It's just round and round and round with these guys. So we'll see what happens. 9 days away there from the Major League Baseball trade deadline. In case you missed it, as always, Jim Duquette, John Canzano, all podcasts up on YouTube after the show today, and then also on your favorite podcast platforms there as well. All right. When we started the Pucks Posse a few months ago, I promised, all right, everyone that signs up, we'll give away a Pucks Posse giveaway package. And then I've been tardy on that, and that's my bad, my fault. And again, you can sign up to be a Pucks Posse member. Please sign up today. I'm going to give out a few of these here in the next few days to make up for the ones that I've missed. But for July, I promise anyone that signed up to be a Pucks Posse member, you go to pucksports.com, and it's just $5 a month. If you sign up for a year, it's a discount. It's like $55. I'm going to give away a $100 prize package, courtesy of some of our fine sponsors. $50 to John Howie Steak. That just covers your cost right there. $25 to Georgetown Brewery, and then $25 to Flat Stick. You're like, well, John, I mean, you just look at that prize package, $100, simply by just signing up for $5 a month. We'll give it out several here in the next few weeks to make up for the ones that I've missed out on, and that's my fault. I was looking through my notes today. I'm like, you're an idiot. You haven't given these out. You got too much on your plate. So July's winner, Eric Navarro. I'll reach out to you, Eric, and send your prize package away to you. Congratulations, Eric. Thank you for signing up to be a Pucks Posse member. I really do appreciate it. $100 prize package coming to you. $50 to John Howie, $25 to Flat Stick, and $25 to Georgetown Brewery. And again, sign up today at pucksports.com. We'll be handing out more of these because this guy was an idiot. Forgot to do it sooner. All right. So great show for you today. A reminder, next week, I'm going to tell you now. Next week, off Wednesday, Thursday, we'll do a lot of baseball trade deadline stuff on Tuesday, but no shows next Wednesday and Thursday. We'll be back Friday, though. So we'll do a bunch of stuff on Tuesday. We'll have Divish, we'll have Duquette. Maybe sneak on Adam Jew. We'll try to do as much baseball as we possibly can leading up there to the deadline for you. All right, let's wrap up today's show with Hey What the Puck, brought to you by Restoration One of North Seattle. It's your restoration company that lets you avoid the stress of water, fire, and mold damage with their property restoration services. Locally owned and operated. Make them your first call when these damages affect your residential or commercial property. 206-817-8917, or visit them online at restoration1.com, the North Seattle franchise. I think one of the more, what's the right word? Disgusting, despicable, as it can be a little harsh. How about unflattering? Personalities or reactions to something can be jealousy. I think jealousy is very unflattering at times, and it leads to pettiness. And that's what, we haven't talked about this story, but that's what has led Kelsey Plum and the rest of her WNBA brethren. Jealousy has led to pettiness in regards to Caitlin Clark. I don't know if Caitlin Clark's a perfect person. I don't know her at all. I watch her play basketball, and she's a hell of a basketball player, and she's fun to watch. And I know more people are invested into that product more than ever, in a large part, because of someone like Caitlin Clark. I don't think that Caitlin Clark is the only one. There's a lot, the talent in that league, since we've all been watching, has improved year after year after year after year. But there is something that has sparked the national perspective on that league and women's basketball. There's a connection that Caitlin Clark has made. And before you get into the obvious connection being race, I would say Kelsey Plum's white. Sabrina Ionescu is white. So it's just not skin color. It is the fact that she is, to me, she is the women's version of Steph Curry. The way that she plays, the fascination with logo threes, the step backs, how she plays. That's the fascination with her. But the players, how they've treated her, the second she came into the league, the veterans, and everyone, it's just, it's one of the more baffling things I've ever seen in sports. And even the way that the media has treated her and the discourse and the discussions around her, it's awful. You wonder why this society and country is in shambles at times. It's because of this stuff like this. A little thing like, what was it? The cover of 2K, was that that came out last week with Angel Reese on the cover? Are you kidding me? That's reserved. Those are reserved for the top players in the game. Generational players. She's Dennis Rodman. Okay, a good player. She gets rebounds. Caitlin Clark is the star of the league, the face of the league. And, they wore the shirts, pay us more. Which, agreed. Listen, if the product is going up and the valuation of teams is going up and TV viewership is up, which contracts for media deals is up and attendance is up and more money is coming in more than ever for women's basketball. Should the salaries increase? Well, of course, that's simple economic supply and demand. She is responsible for the majority of what you're arguing for, of greater salaries. And I'm not saying that the Kelsey Plums of the world need to sit down there and kiss her feet and thank her for everything she's done. And my perception from far away is not that's what Caitlin Clark wants. But my God, the stuff over the weekend of the press conference, the shots left and right from especially Kelsey Plum, which is she's revered here in town. It's just mind-boggling. The viral clip that everyone has played over and over again this week. I think this was from last year's All-Star game, which was Team USA against the All-Stars, and she's face guarding her up and down the court, and Caitlin Clark beats her around, and they get a layup out of it. I mean, it's just it is a real interesting sociological look at how they have treated her and how she has been perceived. And it's just odd. It's just odd of how much attention she has brought to that league and to that sport. And for them to turn around because of jealousy and now it's turned into pettiness. It's just a really sad state of affairs because now people like me and others, that's what you're talking about rather than a important topic like, yes, they need to get paid more. That's Hey What the Puck, brought to you by Restoration One of North Seattle. It's your restoration company lets you avoid the stress of water, fire, mold damage with their property restoration services, locally owned and operated. Make them your first call on those damages affect your residential or commercial property. 206-817-8917. Visit them online at restoration1.com, the North Seattle franchise. All right, thanks for everyone for watching and listening to today's show. Thank you to all our sponsors, Limback Lumber, also Restoration One. You can find today's Daily Puck Drop. You can view it up on YouTube. Please subscribe to the channel. Also leave a comment. Hit that like button as well. Also find the Daily Puck Drop on all your favorite podcast platforms and, of course, up at pucksports.com. When you're there at pucksports.com, sign up to become a member of the Pucks Posse. Be like Eric Navarro. You're going to win a $100 gift card. A prize package, $50 to John Howie, $25 to Flat Stick, $25 to Georgetown Brewery. If you sign up to become a Pucks Posse member, we'll draw a new winner out coming up here in the next few days. Eric Navarro winning that prize package today. All you got to do is sign up to become a Pucks Posse member for as little as $5 a month. You support all the free content we do every single day, plus bonus coverage as well. Additional shows like the Sports Pit, new episode coming out later tonight with myself, Matt Stretch Johnson, Steve Sandmeyer. MLB Insider Show with Ryan Divish coming out tomorrow. Mitch Unfiltered on Thursdays. And, of course, now the Garage with Gas Take 5 podcast, which we now produce here at Puck Sports. So thank you to everyone for watching and listening. Everyone have a great rest of your fabulous Tuesday. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Wednesday's show. We'll talk to Ryan Divish coming up tomorrow. The go-to guy, I believe, is back after dental surgery. We'll see you then. As always, promise to be better.
No shoes, no ties.
Would anybody like to smoke some pot?
Yeah.
I was born to love you. I was born to lick your face. I was born to rub you. But you were born to rub me first.
What do you need my address for?
We'd like to send out a mailer.
Mother of mercy, I don't speak Japanese!